It's about time to make a start. We have formed the quorum. Very warm welcome to the PWSC meeting on Zoom. Please note in the course of the meeting, you're supposed to turn on the video function of Zoom and show your face. And please also use the right color for the virtual background and keep the mic off unless otherwise instructed. We have simultaneous interpretation. Participants are welcome to choose the right channel on Zoom. In the 2022 legislative year, as of last meeting, we have vetted two projects totaling $21.949 billion. There are two papers on the agenda for today. Both are newly submitted funding proposals by the administration. The total funding sought is $1.8126 billion. Should all the funding proposals be endorsed, the cumulative number of projects endorsed will stand at four, totaling $23.7616 billion. Discounting land acquisition and the computerized program of $7.88 billion, the total public works allocation will come to $15.8798 billion. Just a reminder that should members have any interest, or pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in today's meeting, please disclose the nature of the interest under RP 83A before you take the floor to speak. I also like to draw members' attention to 84 of the rules of procedure regarding voting on subjects with pecuniary interest. Item number 1, the District Open Space Sports Center Public Vehicle Park at Sze Mei Street, paper PWSC 2022-23-1. Please, will duty staff remove all the raise hand sign first. Members would like to speak, please press the button to indicate, and I'll be calling upon members to speak in turn. Members are recommended to endorse the upgrading of the project to category A at $1.6 billion. And the project was taken to the development panel for consultation, and the salient points have been emailed to members on the 4th of April for information. With us for this item, Ms. Amy Chung, head of EKEO, Mr. King Kwok Chung, Deputy Head, Ms. David Che, Deputy Director of ASD, Ms. Jackie Lee, Senior Project Manager, ASD, Mr. Holman Chen, Assistant Director of LCSD, and Mr. Keith Tang, Principal Project Coordinator of the Transport Department. Let me have a look at the order of members. Mr. Dick Chi Yun, Mr. Tony J, Mr. Chen Xiuhong, Mr. Tan Yue Heng, Mr. Stanley Ng, Mr. Chen Hofeng, Mr. Gary Zhang, and Mr. Bill Tang. There are 8 members on the list. Just a reminder that if you want to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom so that I can budget the time properly. We have 2 items on the agenda for today. If time permits, I'll be letting members have a second go at the item, and there may be a second go depending on the progress as we go along. allot 4 minutes each. Mr. Tixi Yuan. Chairman, thank you. Good morning, members. Basically, I am in support of this paper because this is an important project for the members of the public. And I get the feeling that these facilities are more for the young people and for the children. That given the aging demographics in Hong Kong, I'd like to ask the administration this. Now, what is the factor of aging population? Would you be designing anything for the young, old people for them to get to engage in more leisure activities? Do you have an elderly person angle to this project? All right, who's going to take the question? Thanks very much, Mr. Tick, for the question. In Wong Tai Sin, the total population is 400,000, and people above the age of 65, they take up 23%, and much higher than the 19% across Hong Kong on average. But we have to realize that there are younger ones, the young olds in Hong Kong. They are pretty active. They're engaging in a lot of exercises. So in providing these leisure or sports facilities, we will bear in mind different needs and provide the right facilities so that people can enjoy more decent life. As regards the aging population in the coming years, the demographics are really graying pretty fast in the coming years. So we do need to fine-tune the range of facilities to cater for this segment of the population. Mr. Tick, Chairman, if I may. But from time to time, I get the feeling that the government doesn't really cater for these people. I see that in some pebble path, there is a long queue of people waiting to get on to the pebbles, and people, elderly people, are in the sun a lot, and they don't get any shade. The aging population is something that has to be taken into account. I think a lot of emphasis is put on the young people and the children to the exclusion of the elderly segment of the population. Any follow-up? Right, and Mr. Michael Tin is next. I think we have missed out on Mr. Tin. 4 minutes, Mr. Tin, please. Chairman, thank you. In Hong Kong, we're running short of parking spaces. In 2017, at the Tsuen Wan District Council, I raised the idea of the mechanical vertical parking system in January 2018. I raised a similar suggestion to alleviate the shortage. In May that year, the TD gave the green light. And in Hong Kong, in November 25th last year, this system was in operation. I was also there on the inauguration. There are two questions, Chairman, here. In Tsuen Wan Hoi Sing Road car park, if we don't do anything at all, there is capacity of 200. With the automated system, we can accommodate 240. So there is an additional 20% of the parking spaces. Now, we're only increasing by 20% according to the contract. Scores of parking spaces should be made available for automated parking, but there is no incentive for them to do so. I'd like to find out more about this in Sze Mei Street in Central Kong. In this contract, do you specify the precise number of parking spaces that will be automated? by the time this is completed, how many parking spaces are there? I don't think you should have a split scoring system. If they are prepared to invest more in the provision of parking spaces, then there would be they would stand to benefit. Also, the world over, in 2030, they will be stopping the registration of the combustion engine vehicles. They will be promoting EVs. Would there be any provision of EV charging points in these particular car park there? Right, who's going to respond? ASD. Chairman. Chairman, yes, please. Chairman, members, if I may respond to Mr. Michael Tin. In this Sze Mei Street in Sanpo Kong, in the contract, the contractor will have to provide 300 parking spaces there. By our rough estimation, if in the basement we adopt the automated parking system, we can have additional 80 to 90 spaces. If we do not adopt this automated system, we can accommodate 200 or 210 parking cars, and 30% of the parking spaces are fitted with the charging facilities. For other spaces, we do provide the power points for the charging system to be retrofitted. Mr. Tin, please. I'd like to follow up, Chairman. Why don't you split up the contract, one on the rental and second on the investment in the automated system? Why do you have to specify the number in the first place? Right, your time is up. Mr. Ching, will you make a brief reply? Prior to the contract being awarded, we have already conducted some in-depth study. We have holistic consideration, like the road condition in the vicinity. And in this project, all the parking spaces are put in the basement. And we have to consider the cost and the duration of the construction. All these will have to be taken into account. So after the detailed design, we figured that no more than 300 spaces would be the right number. Mr. Tony J, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. Kai Tak is an old district, and all these years there is a lack of leisure facilities and open space, and also parking spaces. I've got one point to make. In 2017, the whole project was on the drawing board. In 2018, the government started talking about single site multiple use. Now, 5 years later, this is confirmed. I find that this is taking an inordinately long time. There may be other factors, of course, and I don't think you are spending all the time on the design of the car parks. Now, with regard to this project, in terms of the car parks, the stairs or the exits are not close to the Kai Tak East Park. If people are going to the Kai Tak East playground, I'm wondering whether the connectivity will be good enough. Have you have you had any consideration in this regard? In para 10 of the paper refers to the financial implications. There is a breakdown of the costs in connection with the consultants' fees, and I think in Annex 11, there is a mention of the contract administration. This is $12 million out of the $1 billion. Is about 1% of the total cost.
I would like to ask about the consultants' fees, that they will only begin work after you have received funding. So did they participate in the contract administration, or how did it work? Can you give us a response in that? Will Mr. Jie be taking that question? Yes, thank you. So let me first tell you how the parking elevators will lead to the Kai Tak Park. Actually, the location of the elevators are acceptable. Once you step out of the elevators, we have already considered how the pedestrians will be walking to the Kai Tak East playground. There would be some signage so that those who would like to go to the car park will be able to locate the elevators. As for the consultant fees, as this is a design and build contract, we'll only have one main consultant for the surveyors, and they already began their work before we begin construction. The 12 million set out here is mainly for the consultants' fees for the contract administration. And for the other fees, that's already under another item cost in the project. Mr. Chen Xiu-Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I am in full support of this project in providing more open space and a public vehicle park, but I do have a few concerns. From paragraph 2 to 4, we see that the estimated cost is around 1.6 billion to be completed within 4 years. But then when you look at paragraph 10 and looking at the breakdown, you would see that from 2022 to 2023, we're talking about 8 phases. Let's say we're able to complete the project in 4 years, which is in 2026. So what would the cost be for the rest of the remaining 4 years? Here you set out that there will be a district open space, a sports center, an underground public vehicle park, and then road improvement and modification works. Can you give us a breakdown on the cost of these 4 items? I also like to follow up on Mr. Tian's question. I always believe that we should be innovative in promoting green living, to use a renewable energy such as solar photovoltaic system and automated parking systems. But then in para 3, Roman numeral C, we see that only part of the private vehicles will be using the APS. I want to know why we do not adopt a comprehensive automated parking system, because in 2023, we're supposed to be a smart city by then. I want to ask whether you have considered providing a comprehensive automated parking system in the future. Mr. Jie, please. Well, let me take the first 2 questions. Mr. Chen asked why there will still be costs incurred after the completion of the project in the first 4 years. Simply put, there is still a lot of post-construction work, such as whether there have been adjustments or changes made during construction. And the users, after occupying the site, may need to make purchases such as furniture. Therefore, there would still be cost to be incurred for a few years after completion of the project. You asked whether we could break down the cost in 4 major items. I am sorry, we are not able to do that because we only do a breakdown for the different nature of work, such as site works or foundation. We do not have a figure on each item at the moment. In relation to why we cannot set up a full APS, I can try to give you a brief answer, and maybe the transport department can supplement. Other than private vehicles, we're also providing parking spaces for light vehicles and also for heavyweight vehicles. And so for these goods vehicles, we do not have an automated parking system for that. The APS is mainly for standard sized vehicles. Some private vehicles may be of a particular size, and so in order to allow for these vehicles to park as well, we have provided traditional parking spaces for those cars. Mr. Tang, well, I do not have anything to add at this moment. Oh, all right, it is because of the different types of vehicles. All right. Next, Dr. Tan Yue Hang. Dr. Tan, please, 4 minutes. Thank you. I support the government in the construction of a district open space in Sze Mei Street. I also have a question about the car park space because, as I understand, the underground public vehicle park will be providing an automated parking system. That's very important to the building of a smart city. So I do not see an estimated cost for the automated parking system here. I do not see it on the paper. If you have the figure, can you share this figure with us? The first automated parking system in Hong Kong was commissioned in Tsuen Wan last year. Do you have any facts on its usage? And do you have any statistics to share with us to see whether an APS is actually more conducive to our development in the future? Mr. Sze, please. At the current moment, the APS costs around 80 million for Sze Mei Street. Or for the figures in Tsuen Wan, I would defer to the transport department. Mr. Tang, please. The APS in Tsuen Wan was commissioned in November last year. There are about 89 APS spaces. 90% of such spaces have been rented out. So the operator has leased these out in a monthly format, and it has been very successful. Dr. Tan, do you have any follow-up questions? If not, we move on to the next, Mr. Stanley Ng. 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I am also very supportive of the project. It will be beneficial to the healthy lifestyle of the public. But I do have some follow-up questions on transportation. It has been raised in the Wong Tai Sin District Council that there should be additional signage showing vacant parking spaces nearby to smooth out the traffic. Would you consider doing that? The entrance of the public car park is on Hope Street. It's already a very busy street. Have you considered the impact it may have with the entrance on that street? And a question on the sports center. As I see from the paper, there would be a half-covered basketball court to prevent noise nuisance. Would that really work? How about the lights used on the basketball courts? Would there also be light nuisance affecting the residents living nearby? Transport department and then the architectural services department, please. Mr. Tang. We do have real-time parking information. The number of vacant parking spaces in the Sze Mei Street public vehicle park will also be sent out via the website. So the public can use the app to see the number of vacant spaces. The entrance on Sze Mei Street parking lot will also show the number of vacant spaces. So when the vehicle arrives the entrance, it will be able to see real-time information on vacant spots. Mr. Sze, please tell us about the basketball courts, please. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Ng is concerned about the two basketball courts. We have requested the contractor to ensure there be a noise barrier on the basketball court, and we would make sure that the contractor will be able to comply with these guidelines. During construction, we will continuously follow up with the contractor on the design and to conduct tests to ensure that the cover will be able to prevent noise nuisance. We understand residents living nearby will be concerned with light nuisance. Therefore, we will also consider the outdoor lighting guidelines given by the EPD to ensure that we would minimize light nuisance to nearby residents. All right, time is up. Next, Mr. Chen Hock Fong, 4 minutes, please. Thank you. We have been promoting single-use, single-site, multiple-use concept, and I believe it is very useful to have an underground parking space. We do see many heavy goods vehicles parked on the street, and so I believe we should support having a public vehicle park to accommodate heavy goods vehicles as well. However, I believe that there is still too small a number for parking spaces under the APS. The private vehicles are becoming larger in size. Do you really need to leave so many traditional car park spaces instead of accommodating more APS spaces?
Second, in terms of playground, you have different sessions by the hour. Perhaps the automated parking system may not be fast enough to accommodate the incoming and outgoing vehicles, thus causing a tailback all the way. Have you got any assessment of this nature? Or also about parking? Mr. Ching? Thanks very much, Mr. Chen, for the comments and the questions. Let me explain a little bit. We do have a pretty large car park there. In our consultation with the district council and when we conducted the TIA, we emphasized that we don't have just one single entrance. We have one on Luk Hap Street. We have another one for the private vehicles at Sze Mei Street. Now that would alleviate the potential traffic congestion. In the design, we also put the gate at the basement, so there is a bit of a lead up to the gate. If there is a tailback, then the waiting vehicles can be parked inside the premises without causing any tailback. Right, there are a number of members who raised questions about the number of the parking spaces and see whether these can be increased. I hope that the SE might wish to consider this. I'm sure you must have already taken into account the wide variety of vehicles and the mix there. Perhaps you might wish to have a look at this again. Mr. Gary Zhang, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. 2 questions, if I may. On the 10th of April 2010, paper CB 17490, 71803. This paper is about the reprovisioning of the Kai Tak East playground and the provision of a car park. By the time the sports center is completed, what you're going to do with the existing Kai Tak East playground site? I look forward to more information there. Second, following on from the question raised by Mr. Michael Tin and Mr. Chen Su-hong about the EVs, according to Hong Kong planning standard and guidelines and also the green building circular, 30% would be fitted with the charging facilities, and 70% would be provided with the infrastructure. Will this car park be in compliance with this requirement? EV is going to be the way to go, and I hope that in future papers, the administration will let us have more information about the charging facilities for electric vehicles, please. 2 questions there. The first one is about the site on which the Kai Tak East playground or the Kai Tak East Sports Center is sitting. What's going to use this site for? Right, if I may take the first question first. About the Kai Tak East Sports Center, in the coming 4 years, this will remain in operation. And this will enable the members of the public to enjoy the use of sporting facilities. As to the future of the site, we are liaising with the relevant departments about the optimum use that will be put to the site in response to the needs of the community. We still have a bit of time there, so we are still liaising with the relevant departments. So no firm use yet. What about charging facilities? Mr. Tang, TD, please. Mr. Keith Tang. I think the member has got a point there. We do have the technical guide for green buildings. We need to provide 30% of the charging facilities. For others, we would provide the infrastructure for the retrofitting. Now on Sze Mei Street project, we have 300 parking spaces, 300 times 30. I mean, we have 98 charging facilities there, and they are put in the or next to the parking spaces. Now, for the other parking spaces, we would provide sufficient infrastructure in terms of power supply for the retrofitting of the charging facilities at a later date. As to why we don't put the charging points there, because internationally we don't have any sophisticated standards that can be put in the automated parking system. But we do provide the infrastructure. By the time the technology is mature, where necessary in the future, we will be retrofitting at these automated parking facilities, the charging facilities. Mr. Bill Tang, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. Well, this project has everything to do with the day-to-day life. This is head 703. Now, as regards the leisure facilities and the sports center, now in Kowloon East, we have the EKEO. We don't have the same office in the NT, nor is there such office in Dongchong. So my question is, now the EKEO is playing the coordinating role. Now, what is the advantage of having the EKEO playing the coordinating role? I understand that for sports centers to be built, it would take us at least 400 million or at most $1 billion. Now, why is it costing us $1.6 billion? Now, I know that you are building the open space, the sports center, and the vehicle park. Now, the economy is not doing particularly well, and I'm sure that we will be able to get a good price in the tender exercise. Why is it going to cost us $1.6 billion? Also, I learned from the news that in Yaotong, the two cement batching plants are really on the receiving end of a lot of complaints. And the cement plants are providing a lot of construction materials, and they're critical for the work sites. If the Yaotong cement plant cannot be in operation, will this have any implication on the infrastructural project in Kowloon East? Ms. Amy Zhang, head of EKEO. Will you tell us more about the role of the EKEO as the coordinator, and also the cement plant, and also the pricing there? Perhaps Mr. Ching can supplement. Chairman, in paragraph 5, we have set the scene for the project. At the beginning of 2017, the project has been incorporated in the 5-year plan for sports and recreation facilities. And in 2017, we have already started discussion with various departments as to how best we can make use of this particular site. And we are adopting this single site, multiple use approach and include a car park there to address the problem of shortfall of parking spaces in this district. And we are playing a coordinating role, and we are taking a holistic view of the project, and hence we put forward these proposals. For other questions, I defer to my colleagues. Mr. Edward Che from the ASD, Chairman. About the pricing, this is costing us $1.6 billion. We will certainly review the costing to see whether it is reasonable or not. In Taipo, the ASD completed a similar project. We have a sports center and also an underground car park there. And we made some comparison, and we find that this funding proposal in terms of unit cost is really comparable. And we believe the 1.6 billion represents a reasonable cost. As to the supply of cement, in fact, it's not just about this project. This is of concern to the whole of Hong Kong. The Development Bureau and the Works departments are liaising with the stakeholders to make sure that the cement supply will be smooth, and we will remain vigilant about any potential problems. But specifically, have you ever considered the supply of cement in various districts? Chairman, we are still assessing the tender document. We haven't quite decided on the contractor yet. Different contractors will be using different cement plants. We don't have the information for the time being, I'm afraid, Chairman. Mr. Michael Luk, Mr. Kit Sun Young, and Mr. Andrew Lam, and Ms. Starry Lee. For the first time, please. Mr. Tony J, who would like to have a second go at this subject. Mr. Michael Luk, please. Chairman, thank you. Well, I am in support of this sports center and the vehicle park at Sze Mei Street as part of the single site multiple use approach. And Mr. Bill Tang raised his concern. I don't think the administration has given us a convincing reply. First, you try to make comparison with another project. The people are criticizing the government projects for being too costly. You know, this is not really something new. Maybe the other project you're trying to compare with is costly to start with. If you try to make such comparison, all the projects thereafter is going to be exceedingly expensive. Now, this project in this new term of Let's Go, I would look forward to more transparency, like the average cost per square meter, for instance, for this sports center, and how much is it going to cost us for this sports center per square meter. And also for the vehicle park, how much is it costing us per parking space? This is $270 million for the car park. Now you have the basement to be built before you can provide 300 parking spaces. How much is it going to cost us for each parking space? By comparison with the private sector, are we getting more cost effectiveness for this government project? I think you ought to disclose more information in the interest of accountability. Second, about the facilities. Now, have you ever consulted the district people, like the football players and Now, the futsal is being promoted by the Football Association recently in Wong Tai Sin. Even if you discount the 7-a-side pitch, we have a 7, but for futsal pitch, there are only 5. Now we have the standard matches for futsal in Hong Kong.
Would the government consider actually changing a 7-a-side soccer pitch into a 5-a-side pitch into 2 5-a-side pitches? And can you also provide space for some organizations to set up an office over there so that there will be a stronger communication link between those who like sports with the district? Everyone hopes to see more leisure facilities. We do not see a foreseeable future for such development. However, compared to previous facilities, it seems that we're now providing less facilities. Can we actually retain the Kai Tak Esports Center? Well, time is almost up. Can I defer to Mr. Sze on the cost, please? Thank you. The Architectural Services department has also been looking into new designs which can reduce cost. We adopt a 3S approach to try to reduce cost by coming up with simplistic designs. Mr. Tang asked whether we could provide the average cost for each facility in the future. I would relay this message back to the department and follow up. As to whether we could provide office space at the facilities, I think I will defer to the LCSD. Mr. Chan, please. Please be brief. All the facilities in the sports center are for public use. There are spaces under the HAD to be used for other organizations. And this is how we promote sports in the district. Thank you. Mr. Yang Wen-kit, Mr. Andrew Lam and Ms. Terry Lee, first round, and then Mr. Tony Sze and Mr. Bill Tang would like to speak for a second time, and I will draw a line here because I have reminded you to indicate your wish to speak, and we don't have much time. We would need to vote on the item after Mr. Tang Ka-piu speaks. Mr. Yang Wen-kit, thank you. First of all, I'd like to show my support for the Sze Mei Street development, but I do have a couple of questions and some comments. First of all, on the entrance of the underground public vehicle park. Walk Up Street and Tat Po Street are very narrow streets. There is only Mikiki and this PVP providing car park spaces. But due to the narrow streets, if I could follow up on what Mr. Stanley Ng just said, there would be huge traffic congestion when cars are waiting to enter the car park. Heavy goods vehicles can also park in this car park. So basically, the whole street will be congested when vehicles are waiting to enter the entrance. The 7-a-side hard service soccer pitch is close to King Tai Court. would you be providing a noise barrier? Otherwise, playing soccer there would bring noise nuisance to the residents in King Tai Court. And I do not see a cover over the spectator stands. Would you consider putting in a cover for the spectator stands as well? And third, on charging facilities in the underground car park. By 2035, most of the vehicles in Hong Kong would be electric vehicles. There would be a larger demand for electric vehicles. Although now you provided at a ratio of 7:3, why do you not consider building more charging facilities at this moment? Because by the time they are commissioned, it would be a few years from now. Thank you. Transport Department, please. Mr. Tang. Thank you for your questions. Other than a building on Sze Mei Street, we would also work on improving the traffic around Sze Mei Street. We have added in one carriage lane leading out to Prince Edward East, and so the cars would not be stuck at the roundabout. And on northbound on Sze Mei Street, Lok Kok Street, and Tsepo Street, we have also added in one additional carriage lane to help vehicles leave the district. There will be two entrances for the car park, one on Sze Mei Street to convenient those who come from Mong Kok East. Private vehicles can enter in Sze Mei Street, and there is no need to go through the roundabout. For other vehicles, they can also enter through Lok Kok Street. We have actually improved the traffic in the whole area. And on the issue on charging facilities, we have already reserved electricity for all spaces. But I said earlier, we do not yet have electric vehicles for medium goods vehicles and heavy goods vehicles. Therefore, we are not quite sure about the entire situation. Once the technology becomes mature, we'll be able to install more charging facilities. It wouldn't be difficult at all because we do have enough voltage. We actually do not yet have charging facilities for APS in the world yet, but be rest assured, we have already reserved spaces for that. Once the technology becomes mature, we will also provide charging facilities for these automated parking system spots. How about for the cover for the spectator stands? Who would like to take this question? Yes. Thank you, Chairman. The spectator stands can accommodate about 300 people. These are retractable spectator stands. So the stands could be retracted to make room for a larger pitch. And with this consideration, with this in mind, we have decided not to put a cover over the spectator stands. Mr. Andrew Lam, 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. My first question is on the estimated cost and the breakdown of the project. A few members have already asked the same question. I hope in future, when these items come up to the committee, you will be able to show us the breakdown of the project price for each item. I'm sure that will not be difficult at all. On the breakdown, or the current breakdown of the capital cost, one item is additional energy conservation, green and recycled features. My understanding is that this is a general term. I just want to take this opportunity to understand what we mean by additional features. When would these green conservation features become a recurrent item instead of an additional item? Mr. Sze, please. Let me try to explain. We have energy conservation features which differ from each project, but we do have the same goal. We hope that the money invested would see a return. So we are talking about 5 to 6 million here. We would see a return in 8 years, and every year we would be able to save around 1/12 of energy cost. Another item is renewable and recycled features. We do have a guideline internally that for renewable facilities, we might not be able to calculate it based on the return, but we do set a percentage that 2% of it should be spent on renewable features. I just have a follow-up question. You're using the term additional here. If these features are already set out in your guidelines, that means that you would see this in every single project. Additional means that we wouldn't be able to compare it with other projects. I just hope that in future this would become a basic requirement and not an additional feature. Green features are included in all the new government projects. The government is very concerned about the return on energy conservation and green and recycled features. Therefore, we have added in this item in the financial implication. But I agree with Mr. Lam that we must request the government to consider green features and energy conservation in all government projects in the future. A few members have already expressed their views on the project cost, and so in future, I hope that the government will also show us a breakdown on the project items so that we will have a better idea of the financial implications. Next, Ms. Dari Lee, 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I support this item. This is an old district and the traffic has always been very congested with a lack of open space and sports facilities. So the district council is in full support of this item. And many members have raised concern on traffic. I would like the transport department to tell us more about the traffic. Just now, Mr. Tang said that traffic will be improved with this project. Do you actually have a quantified improvement to show us how traffic can be alleviated with this project? Thank you, Ms. Lee. We hope to move the illegal parking vehicles into the underground public vehicle park, because when there is a parking lot nearby, then people will not park on the streets and there would be more space on the streets. I cannot quantify the situation, but think of it this way: when there are less cars parked along the side of the street, there would be more space for other vehicles to maneuver around. We are considering that near Choi Hong Road, we would be able to actually add in one more carriage lane, because currently there's only one lane. We hope to improve the carriageways to ensure that we'll be able to alleviate the traffic in San Pokong.
Well, I hope that the administration will further improve the traffic situation in the days to come. It is crying out for improvement there. Thanks very much, Mr. Lee. Indeed, parking is something of concern to the public. We haven't seen any solution so far. For commercial vehicles, we're talking about 2 parking spaces for every 3 vehicles. So I'm glad that in this project there are spaces for commercial vehicles as well as private vehicles that we support, but overall across Hong Kong, the supply of parking spaces is woefully inadequate. And I don't think we can spend a long time here at this PWSC meeting talking about the parking policy. I'm sure that we haven't heard of the last of these subjects. We can follow up on this at the transport panel. For the second round, Mr. Tony J, 3 minutes, please. Chairman, I'd just like to follow up on some of the questions that I raised in my last round. The administration said that they have considered the connectivity to make it user-friendly. Perhaps they might wish to supplement the information to me. For this car park, if you look at the location of the escalator and the staircases, it seems to me that they are pretty far away from the Kai Tak East playground on Sze Mei Street. I look forward to some supplementary information about this to see whether you have taken this into account. Second, about the contract management, the administration told us that the QS is involved in the work of the tender document. This $10 million cost has included this QS already. Can you give me further information? Yes, Mr. Che from the ASD, please. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Che, for the question. That the connectivity with the Kai Tak East playground in Annex 2, we do have some information there. If Mr. J is not happy with the information there, we are only too delighted to make available further information to Mr. J. As to the cost of contract management, the $10 billion doesn't include the advanced work. When the project is awarded to the contractor, we have the on-site staff, we have the engineering staff, and that will be absorbed by the $10 million. And this is included in the $1.6 billion project cost. Mr. J, I am more concerned about the connectivity with the Kai Tak East playground. Is there anything that you have done to tie in with the connectivity. I can see that some footbridges might help. How can people go across, get across to the Kai Tak East playground? I am more concerned about it. Would you please make available further information, like with the help of a plan? Okay, I'm sure that the department is aware of Mr. J's point. Will you supplement further information in writing, please? Mr. Bill Tang, I think we'll have to make this the last speaker for this item. 3 minutes, Mr. Bill Tang, please. Go ahead, Mr. Tang, please. Chairman, thank you. No need for response. I'm highly concerned about the two cement batching plants there in Yau Tong. If the EPD doesn't renew the licenses anymore, then I'm sure that 25% of the cement supply will be adversely affected. I'm wondering how much impact there will be on the infrastructural work in Kowloon East. I'm sure you must have some contingency plan. If one department were to withhold the license, then you will find it difficult to have enough supply. In 2015-16, the typo area 1 for the integrated project, I was part of the one to approve that. It cost us $1.6 billion, and it measured 21,000 square meters. Now we are talking about 10,000 square meters. At that time, there is a 25-meter warm water pool and also community hall. Here, by comparison, this project, the scale of this project is nowhere near as big as that one. Why is it costing us $1.6 billion? I don't think you are really addressing the price tag well enough, despite the difference in scale. Why is it costing us $1.6 billion as well? Mr. Edward J, ASD. Thanks very much, Mr. Tang, for the question. Area 1 typo, indeed, it cost us $1.6 billion. But over the years, the construction cost index has been rising. If you convert that into today's price tag, it would have cost us $2.1 billion. If we were to do it all over again in typo, the price there would have been much higher than that for Sze Mei Street. Now, for this Sze Mei Street project, it might look expensive. That's because mainly the basement work, because that is a part of the work that is more costly. We have to do the excavation and all the rest of it, and all these would be costly. Chairman, I have to butt in here. So upon completion, are we talking about a new price tag? Would it be jacked up to $2.1 billion? Mr. J, Chairman, well, this is the money of the day price. This has taken into account the element of inflation. So for today's price, it might not have cost us $1.6 billion. Right? Many members would like to find out about the individual costs for the three different elements. I know that when you go to tender, you would do the calculation individually, but perhaps the ASD might wish to tell us for these three elements, how much do they cost us? Will you supplement the information in writing, please, Mr. Edward J. All right, about the supply of cement, I'm wondering whether Development Bureau might wish to give us a brief reply. We have the EVP here. Yes, Permanent Secretary. Chairman. I think this is a valid concern. The supply of cement is critical to the infrastructural work. In terms of siting, we do have our considerations. The cement in the course of transport might solidify, so we have to site the plant properly. In Yau Tong, there will be development in future. So in Zheng Guanlou, area 137, we're going to be having a temporary cement plant to provide to address the need in Kowloon. In the long run, we are identifying a long-term site for the cement batching plant to be provided to meet the needs of the district. All right, unless members have any further questions, and I'll put the paper to the vote. Just a reminder that non-PWSC members, please do not vote. When members are voting, please show your hand and also your face, and please do not put down your hand unless instructed to do so. With those in favor of PWSC 2022-23-1, please raise the hands. Those in favor, please raise the hands. All right, unanimously in favor. Those against, please raise their hands, please. No objection. Any abstention, please? I don't see any abstention either. I think the members voting are in favor of the project. The paper is endorsed. So we have to move on to another voting, and that is whether we should advise the Finance Committee to further discussion on paper PWSC 2022-23-1. In accordance with paragraph 3 of the PWSC procedures, members have to suggest whether we should have further discussion at the Finance Committee. That's paper PWSC 1. And in accordance with paragraph 3 of the PWSC procedures, normally we do not advise that FC do the discussion again. So in accordance with paragraph 4T1A of the PWSC procedures, I'd like to put this to the vote. The PWSC proposes that FC have further discussion on PWSC 2022-23-1. If this is endorsed, then the FC will have further discussion. If this is voted down, then there will not be any recommendation that FC have further discussion on this item. Right, again, show of hands. Those in favor, please raise their hands. And no one in favor. Standing chairman, if I may. Members raised some questions a moment ago. If the administration can give the undertaking that prior to the FC discussing this item, will they give the undertaking that the information we sought be made available so that I or other members indeed can decide whether we should have separate voting at the FC? All right, I've already done so. I've asked the administration to do so. I'm sure that prior to the FC taking this item, they would be making available the information to the PWSC. After the meeting, should members wish to have further discussion at the FC, you may make such a request accordingly. But here, I think we have already put this, we are putting this to the vote with those in favor, i.e. separate voting at the FC for those in favor. No. Those against, we don't need to have separate voting at the FC. Please raise their hands. Hands up, please. Basically unanimously, not in favor. Any abstention there, please? Nope. Right, and members who were voting were against this suggestion. So this motion is defeated. So we're not proposing that FC have further discussion on PWSC 2022-23-1. Move on to the next item.
So this is the open space at Eastern Street North, Sai Ying Poon, paper number PWSC 2022-23-2. In order to be fair to all members, please, with the duty staff, please remove all the raise hand features. For those who would like to speak, please now press the raise hand Zoom button. All right, currently there are around 10 members who have indicated they wish to speak. This paper recommends the upgrading of 475 RO2 Category A at an estimated cost of 207.6 million in money of the day prices for the development of open space at Eastern Street North. And this has already been consulted in March. We have already circulated to members discussion points on April 4th. And today, present to answer our questions, we have Mr. Vic Yao, Deputy Secretary for Development, Ms. Rosalind Chan, Commissioner for Harbourfront Development Bureau, Mr. Victor Tai, from Project Director of Architectural Services Department, Ms. Jackie Lee, Senior Project Manager of Architectural Services Department, Mr. Benjamin Hong, Assistant Director of Leisure and Cultural Services. Let us now take a look at the order of speaking. Mr. Chen Hok-fong, followed by Dr. Tik Chi-yun, Ms. Chen Kapun, Mr. Chen Siu-hong, Mr. Lee Chen-kang, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Frank Kiek, Mr. Lam Wen-gong, Mr. Stanley Ng, Mr. Go Hui Kang, and Mr. Tony Tse. 11 members have indicated they wish to speak. It would be 4 minutes each, but I would have to draw a line here because we'll need to adjourn the meeting at 10:30 as we do have a council meeting at 11. Mr. Chen Hok-fong. Thank you. We're happy to see this project item. As a district councillor for Central and Western District, I really do want to see the opening up of the promenade. We can provide amenities and enhance the waterfront promenade. So we're very happy to see this improvement. However, I'd like to optimize the management of this area because the harborfront has always been subject to a sort of like open management, open operation. Some people do not care about causing nuisances to nearby residents, and they would play with fire, talk loudly at night, or even skateboard at night. Are you going to adopt the same operation model or management by the Harbourfront Commission, or would it be different? And I also like to ask about the heavy goods vehicle parking spaces. As I understand, there is such a need. I would like to know whether there is any updated progress on providing such spaces, because I heard last time that many of the parking spaces have been moved to Taiwan. I hope that parking spaces for heavy goods vehicles can be provided in the same district. There's a small parking lot toward the entrance of the open space right now, but it's not a very ideal environment. Would you be taking this opportunity to optimize the area as well? And would you also improve the north and south connection towards the promenade? Because at this moment, it is not very convenient. You would need to cross many streets and wait for the traffic lights, or you have to take the footbridge along Eastern Street. Mr. Yao, would you like to take these questions? Thank you. Thank you for your comments and thank you for your support for this project and your interest in the harborfront enhancement. In the management model, we adopt different models along different parts of the promenade. In some areas, it's an open space management. It is actually a new trial to try to provide a free space for all. But during this trial, we have been learning from our mistakes. We understand that some people skateboard at night and cause noise nuisance. And we have made changes recently that after 11 in the evening, we do not permit such activities. But then towards another part, it's under the LCSD in the same way as the management of parks. Therefore, in different parts of the promenade, there would be different themes with different management models. And people can enjoy the different parts of the promenade. Well, time is up. Can you be very brief about the parking spaces? Yes, thank you. Dangerous goods vehicles can now park in the Eastern Street parking lot, but since it would be removed, we have considered asking these vehicles to move to Taiwan, but then we have heard the views of the industry and we are going to try to provide in situ parking spaces for dangerous goods vehicles in this area. Dr. Tik-Ti-Yuen. Thank you. I also support this project. Let me try to put this out from a user perspective. Well, I like to jog along the promenade, enjoying Victoria Harbour, and I especially like jogging during sunset hours. This is really something beneficial to the public. I do hope you'll be able to enhance the harbourfront as soon as possible. I do have two minor requests as a user. There are auxiliary facilities, including toilets and a baby care room. I suggest you also add in water stations for those who like to jog along the promenade. And around sunset, it's quite hot to run along the promenade. In other countries, you would see water fountains spraying the promenades during hot hours to try to lower the temperature. Would you also consider adding in such ancillary facilities as well? Mr. Yao. Thank you, Dr. Tik, for your support and for using the promenade. We can take this view back to the department and would ensure there be water stations provided in the future. Please don't only consider it because this is very important to users. We do not see water fountains or water spraying along the promenade. It's actually not a huge cost, but it would be beneficial to many people. I'm sure Mr. Yao heard your views. Ms. Chan Kaput. Thank you. I'd also like to show my support. Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park is very popular to residents in the vicinity and also to the general public. I do have a couple of questions, however. First of all, on the timeline, I see from the paper that the breakdown is shown for 7 years. Well, this is considered minor with the compared with the previous item, but that for the previous item, the breakdown is in 8 years. This one is for 7 years. I hope you'll be able to shorten the time. The breakdown shows that the largest amount is the external works. What do you mean by external works? I hear in the previous item about energy conservation and green features. Are you saying that you'll be able to reduce energy usage by 20%? It wouldn't take much land for you to install photovoltaic systems. So can you actually increase energy savings by 10% by installing such a system? And I also am happy to hear about what Dr. Stick said about the water spray, because that would be very useful. It's actually quite sunny during the day. Would you plant more trees along the area? I see in many promenades that sometimes you're not able to plant huge trees along the area, and thus you will not be able to block out the sunlight during the day. Mr. Yao, we are aiming to complete this project within 3 years. But even with the completion of the project, there would still be other expenses to be paid. I'd like to defer to the Architectural Services Department to answer the other questions. Mr. Tai, thank you, Chairman. Other than the building itself, the pedestrian walkways, the parks, the pavilions, all belong to the category of external works. Due to the geographical location, in order to leave a wide enough path around 6 meters, we try our best to put up greenery in the remaining areas. And so we're not able to plant too many thick or large trees in the area. Please be concise, the time is up. We will consider what kind of trees we would plant in. We would try our best to provide some shade in the area. Mr. Chan Xiu-Hong, 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to express my support for the project because it would provide a nice waterfront promenade for the public with the largest trampoline, which will be installed outside or outdoors in Hong Kong, and that would become a place for activity. I would like to follow up with 2 questions. First of all, in period 11, it's stated that the play area will feature the largest outdoor trampoline in Hong Kong suitable for all age groups. According to my understanding, regardless of it being indoors or outdoors, trampolines are still high risk activities. So what kind of safety measures would you put in place to ensure that it would not be a high risk activity? And how are you going to manage and maintain the trampoline, because it would be subject to weather conditions. And this would be near the entrance of the Western Harbor. Do you have any special design to ensure that there would not be any traffic accidents causing to fatalities for those using the promenade?
Mr. Yao, if I may take the questions in the reverse order, that area is already open for open space purposes. At the Western Harbor crossing, there is a ramp taking the traffic down to the tunnel, and there is some proper segregation. It's been in use for quite a number of years, and it doesn't pose any safety hazard. Perhaps ASD might wish to supplement on the first question. Mr. Victor Tai, Chairman, about the safety of the play facilities. In this project, we have retained a consultant, a play consultant, that offered us advice regarding the right type of play facilities. As to the bouncy trampoline, we have to measure up to the international safety standard, and we have to install the facilities in accordance with the supplier's requirements. And there is a safe distance away from the other facilities. Upon completion, there would be a recognized inspector who will be issuing the permit before they will be put to use. In terms of maintenance, as per the advice of the contractor, we will be making sure that there will be enough stock of the spare parts for us to carry out the maintenance work. Mr. Chen, if I may follow up on the second question, Mr. Yao said that the play facilities or the open space has been around for some time, but upon completion, I'm sure a lot more park goers will be attracted there. And I'd just like to draw your attention to the fact that maybe you need to put in more safeguards to guard against this eventuality that I mentioned. Right, time is up. I'm sure that safety is always paramount. Mr. Lee Chen-Keung, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. Again, I'm also concerned about the play facilities and also the potential danger there. In particular, the bouncy trampoline. These companies would have the escape clause when people are using it. What is the maximum capacity for this trampoline? Would there be any guards monitoring the situation? What about the insurance coverage? Who should be held responsible? And the 6-meter lane that you have people cycling down there. You may also have skateboarding and all the rest of the activities, and you throw the joggers in the mix, there is a likelihood of people being pushed over, tripping over and so on. Would there be any insurance coverage? Finally, about parking spaces. Like Studi Chan said, people may be going across the district to this area, and there is a shortfall of parking spaces. Now, will there be enough space for people to park? I heard that there will be enough parking for the goods vehicles. I welcome that. But in the community garden, for example, you can apply this single site, multiple use approach. You can put the parking spaces downstairs, whereas on top, you can use it for community garden. And I hope that this can be considered by the administration. Mr. Vic Yao, Chairman, about the 6-meter passageway. There is a passageway across the park. In terms of cycling, we are keeping our options open. We hope that there will be a greenway accommodating the people as well as the cyclists. In Central, we are conducting a test to see whether we will be able to have a good enough management to accommodate a greenway. But with 6 meters, I'm sure that the hardware is really good enough. And we are considering how best we can do it in terms of software. The trampoline, if time permits, an ASD can supplement, but as a play facility, it is a first in Hong Kong outdoor, but this is quite a commonplace in other parts of the world. Parking spaces and the community garden. As we said, the dangerous goods vehicles will be parked on Fong Mat Road. On Fong Mat Road, we still have other goods vehicles in addition to dangerous goods vehicles. If we provide all the parking spaces there for vehicles affected by East Street, then we can increase the capacity on Fong Mat Road to add 6 to 8 vehicles. We have Kennedy Town, Sze Mei Street, and under Connaught Road, Flyover, and Manon Street. We also make available additional parking spaces there. Overall, that would be enough to satisfy the demand arising from the vehicles displaced from this project. You have a couple of seconds, if I may, about the trampoline. We are still in the tendering process. We still haven't quite shortlisted the supplier of the trampoline and the contractor. Once we are done with the tendering exercise, we will be setting up all the operational requirements. You haven't quite answered the question about insurance. Will there be any insurance coverage? If they have the escape clause, there will be potential danger there. I'm sure they understand your point. I'm sure they will certainly consider the insurance, all the rest of it. Mr. Andrew Lam, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. I speak in support of the project, but there is one point. In B, you're tying in with the development of the vicinity. Now, what exactly are you talking about there? And also, what proportion of this as part of the overall project is interfacing work with the adjacent developments? Mr. Yao, please. Right, interfacing with adjacent developments. Now, for this project, we have the promenade on it. We have the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park and the Western Wholesale Food Market on either side of the project. So we have to have the interfacing with all these neighboring facilities. ASD. Mr. Tai, please. Chairman, thank you. About the breakdown there. This project is of a minor nature. This has been incorporated into the internal budget. Mr. Lam. I'm focusing on interfacing with adjacent developments. So all these are included in this project. Is there anything else that has to be undertaken outside the scope of this project? No, it's within the scope of this project. Thank you. Mr. Frankie Yik, 4 minutes, please. Chairman, thank you. I've already stated my views on multiple occasions before. The Deputy Secretary has been working very hard to accommodate the vehicles displaced by this project in situ. But I think that you haven't quite got to grips with the numbers. East Street North, there are 21 dangerous goods vehicles that can be accommodated in Format Road. But I must point out that Format Road is really chock-a-block full at the moment. They have a number of rehab vehicles and dangerous goods vehicles. Now, Mr. Deputy Secretary, where else are you going to move the vehicles already on Format Road? Now, we have 1 to 6 in terms of parking spaces, and a lot of vehicles are parked on the street. There are 85 vehicles on 45 dangerous goods vehicles, 40 goods vehicles. There are 20 parking spaces for lorries on Sze Mei Street. That will not be enough to accommodate all the vehicles. So I don't think that would be nearly enough to accommodate all these vehicles. I hope that the Deputy Secretary would go down to the site and count the numbers. Now, for Eastern Street North, a lot of the drivers who park there are senior citizens. If you shove them to Taiwan, they will spend an additional 30 minutes on the road, and that would affect the rest time and the time spent with their families. If you move the vehicles across the district, it's going to be causing a lot of pollution, and this is detrimental to Hong Kong. It's not the case that we're against these leisure open space projects, but the government has the obligation to provide these facilities. Nothing about livelihood is too small a matter, and I hope that you will scale back this project, or you will be taking back the community garden, like Mr. Lee Chen Kong said. If you stack them up, you can have multiple use, so you can have this community garden on top, whereas a car park below. Chairman, if you cannot resolve the parking problem for the commercial vehicle, I find I'm hard put to it to support this project. So I suggest that this be taken separately at the Finance Committee. Right, Mr. Yao. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Yik. First, about the scale of this project. Indeed, we need to resume the Eastern Street North car park there. But this is a magnificent area on the harbor front. We'd like to turn this into a place where people can enjoy. And the roads there are pretty narrow, and we very much hope that we can keep this place as somewhere people can enjoy. Now, you talked about shifting the vehicles to Taiwan. As I said, we would like to reprovision the car parks on Format Road in situ. Now, Mr. Yik said the numbers do not tally. Now, we are happy to compare notes with Mr. Yik about the numbers. Over the months, the TD has been doing the observation, and this is the result of the observation, and we do have a good basis in terms of the numbers. So for the 20 dangerous goods vehicles or 30 goods vehicles the displays, that we hope that they will be accommodated in situ by increasing the capacity on Fourmart Road. And on Sze Mei Street, there are 20 parking spaces. That's the spare capacity. And all these would be enough to make up for the shortfall. As to the precise numbers, we're happy to compare notes with Mr. Ying to see whether there is any discrepancy there.
Chairman, I hope that we'll be able to vote on this separately at the Finance Committee. And during this time, I would compare figures with the Deputy Secretary, because this is really important and significant. I understand, Mr. Yao, you should talk to Mr. Ying and try to come up with a way to resolve this. And Mr. Ying has requested a separate voting on the item at the FC, but we have heard your views very clearly. Next, Mr. Leung Man Kwong, 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I've been using the promenade even before the pandemic. Therefore, I am really in support of the Harbourfront Enhancement Project. But in the western part, near the Western Wholesale Food Market, I am a bit concerned with the pedestrians walking in the promenade from Singsai Road. There's a pedestrian walkway which you have to go through a carriageway, but then the roads are usually blocked by heavy goods vehicles and pallets. Have you looked into the design of the road? I am just concerned that in future, well, we do not want the public to park illegally along the streets when they visit the promenade. And of course, we will try to encourage them to use public transportation. How can you convenience the public in reaching the harbor? We want elderly people and people with disabilities to also be able to reach the harbor front easily. We want to make it easily accessible to all. So would you try to learn from the current experience and try to improve the entrances? I hear that the play area will feature a trampoline suitable for all age groups. When there are any tears, we understand from previous LCXD experience that it will be closed for a long period of time before the problems could be fixed. So when you open this for tender, would you also put this under consideration to ensure that the trampoline wouldn't be closed for long periods of time? Mr. Yao, thank you for your support and your questions. Well, you're very familiar with the situation. On the entrance via the Western Wholesale Food Market, we need to look at the historical background. The northern part of the promenade used to be a dock, and so you would see the wholesale food market in operation over there. We are now opening up the promenade. We cannot make 100% improvements. Of course, we want to optimize the environment, but then it's still a sort of like a sub-industry area due to its historical background. The government has been working very hard to follow up on this. there are other ways to visit the promenade. You can actually walk for around 5 to 10 minutes from the Eastern Street, and that walkway is actually easily accessible for all. And we have heard your views on the maintenance of the trampoline, and we would ensure that we listen to your views. Mr. Duncan Chiu, you have raised your hand, but I have to apologize because I've already drawn a line. Mr. Stanley, Mr. Tony Tse, and then Mr. Kwok Wai Kwang, please. Mr. Stanley, Chairman, I also support this item. I have 3 suggestions on improvements. First of all, I think we need to add in a pet-friendly space in the open space, like Shengwan. And secondly, on the co-sharing of pedestrians and cyclists, we have seen a successful example in Kwun Tong, and so we need to ensure that bicycles could also use the area. Thirdly, on the complexity of the roads on accessibility, we need to enhance the convenience and accessibility to ensure that children, elderly, and people with disabilities could use the area. We have to ensure that the entire general public would be able to use it. Mr. Yao, do you have any responses? I have already addressed the concern on the entrance to the park. For pet-friendly spaces, we adopt an open view. We have heard different views. And before we open the park for use, we would once again listen to views of stakeholders before we come up with a decision. And Mr. Ng, you're correct. We have already adopted a co-using method in Kwun Tong, and we are now testing out the area near Admiralty. We're talking about a 6-meter wide path, and we must ensure safety for both pedestrians and cyclists. It is very enjoyable to cycle along the promenade, and this is one of our vision. We hope to achieve this goal, and we would work on it. Thank you. Mr. Tony Tse and then Mr. Kwok Wai Kwang, and then we would have to vote after they speak. And maybe we would have to go over time to finish all this. Mr. Tony Tse, please. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare that I'm a member of the Harbourfront Commission. Of course, I support this item, as the public will be able to enjoy a continuous waterfront promenade. And it is welcome by everyone. In principle, I support different activities to be carried out along the promenade. The government is still testing out certain areas now, but I believe the key to that is management of the facilities. Some facilities may have a theme, but then skateboarders may be using facilities not meant for them. And that would damage the facilities. I'm concerned with the consultant fees. It sees that it would be around 300,000 for the design on the play area. We're talking about an area of about 1.32 hectares and a 300,000 fee is mainly focused on the play area. What other designs will be included other than the play area? So how would other designs work together with the entire promenade? Mr. Yao. The 300,000 is the construction cost. The design fee is actually not included in the 300,000. As for the other designs, it is actually done by the government and therefore we have not included a design fee in the breakdown. Thank you, Mr. Kwok Wai-Chun. Thank you, Chairman. I also support the item. However, I do have some views. The harbor front is very popular with the general public and we see crowds gathering during holidays. We're now looking at a continuous waterfront promenade. Some private organizations or even public organizations and the government are trying to make room to ensure the continuity of the promenade. There is still some private industrial buildings along the promenade. And so there is still some difficulty in opening up those parts of the promenade. Have you talked with the landowners of those areas? Are you planning to make the harborfront more connected? Do you have a timetable? Ultimately, when do you want to ensure full connectivity of the promenade? It seems there will be some fitness equipment provided. And I really welcome that because users of the promenade have complained about insufficient fitness equipment in the area. But what kind of fitness equipment would you be providing? Because many people want to exercise both the upper bodies and their lower bodies. And so you will need different equipment. I hope you could step up your efforts in co-sharing of pedestrians and cyclists. Can you enhance the connectivity and at the same time enhance the popularity amongst the public at the same time? Mr. Yao, let me talk about the connectivity. As I said earlier, there is a historical background on the promenade, and towards the north side, there are some private industrial buildings. We do not have one fixed strategy. We are trying to be innovative and try to set up a new pathway under the flyover in certain areas to ensure connectivity of the promenade. There used to be an industrial building along the promenade. We're now discussing with the landowner to open up this area. When we designed the park, we have discussed with residents nearby and the consultants in providing fitness equipment. And many people are looking for more space in engaging in sports activities, including yoga. And we also providing an open space for people to use it in whatever manner they prefer.
Mr. Yeo, I'm sorry, I have already drawn a line there, and I think you have to bear with us. If you have any questions, you're welcome to raise them with the administration after the meeting. All right, then, and I'll put this item to the vote. Let's go back to the gallery view. With those in favor of PWSC bracket 2022-23 bracket 2, with those in favor, please raise their hands. And let me see. Unanimously in favor. Those against, please raise their hands. One member against. Abstention. I think I saw one abstention there. I think the member who voted were in favor of this paper. The paper is endorsed. Let's move on to the next voting. In accordance with Para 41A of the PWSC procedures, we're voting on whether we should recommend that the FC further discuss paper PWSC 2022-23-2. If this is endorsed, it means that the PWSC recommends that this paper be further discussed at the FC. If this is rejected, then there is no such recommendation for the FC. With those in favor, i.e. separate voting at the FC, with those in favor, please raise their hands. Mr. Yik, right, he has stated his stance already. Mr. Lee Chen Kong. Hands down, please. Those against, i.e. no recommendation for the FC to further discuss the item, please raise your hands. Keep your hands up. Majority of the members do not see the need. Abstention, any abstention there? One abstention, two. Right, two abstentions there. I think the majority of the members who voted were against this proposal. So this proposal is rejected. The PWSC doesn't recommend that this be further discussed at the Finance Committee. That's paper PWSC 2022-23-2. It is expected that these items will be submitted to the FC sometime in April. And there are members who sought further information and also site visit to address the parking issue. Will the administration follow up on this? The next meeting is scheduled for the 27th of April, a Wednesday, between 8:30 and 10:30 a.m. Depending on the pandemic situation, I would instruct the clerk to let members know whether we're going to have the meeting physically or online. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all very much.